Hey guys. Well, welcome back to another episode of Level Up. And, I haven't done podcasts in quite a few years. Definitely have all the equipment, and it's taken some refamiliarization with it, but I think I'm back in the groove, back in the swing of things. Excuse me. Anyway, so, a lot of you know my story. Back about 7 months ago, 8 months ago, back in June. And you can Google my name and you'll see all kinds of stories and reports. But basically, I lost both my parents to COVID. They both passed away holding hands, which is kind of a cool story. And a lot of people will always reach out to me and say that they can't believe how well I'm coping with it and how proud they are of me. And that's where I have to kind of just stop them and say, everything I've learned that I'm trying to teach everybody throughout these episodes is what has gotten and made me better at doing this. So anyway, I hope with that information you can take that, help yourself get through these tough moments that you might be going through. But a lot of people don't know my story. I've always been in my mind successful. But about 3, 4 years ago, I lost everything. And when I say I lost everything, I mean I lost everything. Like I woke up and I had $16 to my name. Bank accounts were frozen, money was gone, like everything was just gone. And I don't really tell the stories anymore or get into details about it. But basically, um, it was ballpark of $70,000 that was just gone. And initially, you know, I basically woke up to this information and I was devastated. I was destroyed. I cried. And then it became one of those things. Um, well, this is the situation I'm in. And I had to stop crying and feeling bad. And all I could do was focus on what can I do? Not, what can't I do, but what can I do? Um, and so basically I went into this whole new area of my brain where I had to figure out, how this money I had in my hand could make me more money, or the gas in my car could make me more money. And that's where that was a huge lesson for me, is not what is wrong, but what could be right of the situation. No, don't get me wrong. I stopped telling this story as to what happened because I'm not the victim anymore. I was angry about it. I was the victim. And once I let all that go, it really was the best thing that happened for me, not to me. Right. And I take full blame for this, but even though I took full blame from the beginning, I still had the mindset of I'm the victim. And you're not going to get anywhere when you're the victim. And so I learned, that once the door closes, it does you no good to look at that closed door when there's other doors opening on the other side. And if you focus on what you had in the past, you're not going to see the new opportunities that move you forward. Now, when this happened, I probably went through about another 8 months before really things started falling apart. And the worst part of it all is I really didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody. I hid this from so many people for a couple of months, and that really made it worse because it was one of those storms that was brewing out on the horizon that at any moment I knew could come in and just make things worse, or you know embarrass me, things like that. And that was, kind of goes back to I cared more about what people thought of me, and I didn't want to be a failure, things like that. And so I was really in a kind of in a dark spot, but I really had to learn how to, you know, get past that. And that was where what can I do? And just kind of go from there. And it was really one of those things I began to tell a couple of people, and the story was just so unbelievable that it was just one of those things. It happens, and it's actually happened to me twice. So it's not like it doesn't happen often. I'm not being singled out. But you just have to, you know, be able to accept what cards are dealt to you, and I think it's a good place. But I just felt so bad, and it was one of those things. I Gosh, I just felt like such a loser, even though I wasn't. And it was, a lot of those moments as I slowly, you know, and it was one of those things, when I said the storm was on the horizon, I didn't know if it was gonna come in and hit. It was like I didn't know if things I owned were gonna be seized. I didn't know if the electricity was gonna be shut off because I couldn't pay for it in my business. So it was one of those things everybody was gonna find out potentially, and I just didn't know if they were or not. And that was my ego in the way. And once I let all that go, oh my gosh, the stress just left my body. Um, but you really have to, look at what matters the most. And I think as men, gosh, we are the worst at being men. Like we're so worried about being vulnerable or crying or being upset, and I think that's where we miss the mark a little bit. And we have to really just not be so worried about being so manly about things, Um, but it was, I mean, it was not, it was also that time in my life I changed my verbiage. So I got rid of hate, I got rid of bad, I got rid of all those things that have a negative connotation to it. And now looking back, I just say that things were not ideal at the time. And they were tough. They were tough for sure for a long time. Um, but it's one of those things that had it not happened then, oh my gosh, when the pandemic hit, I would for sure be out of business. Now, I realized with that business I had and the model I had for that, it was just horrible. Like it wasn't sustainable. And I was just killing myself to do this and this. Um, it was just a tough time, but I had to just be honest with myself and focus on what really mattered. And so many of those times I was so worried about what people thought. Once everything finally came to an end, nobody really cared. So I was building things up in my head to be way more than they should have been or than they were. Um, Gosh, there was something else I was going to say about that. But yeah, I was taking I even took whatever jobs I could at the time, and it was like I just need to make money. And since I think I've recovered from that, I'm in a better spot, and I just feel better about life. But I really had to look at, it came down to I had to focus on, well, what do these guys that are successful do, right? Like, what do they do? What are their common things they do? And I'm going to do that. And one thing is that they all get up very early in the morning. They get up early, they get their day started before everybody else. They kind of beat everybody out into the world. And I was like, Roger that, I'm doing that. And the other thing they do is they all meditate to some form. Well, I'd always meditated somewhat over the years, but that was when I really had to ramp it up and focus more on being more vigilant with it and what I meditated about. And then it was, I had to just practice those things and just really be more aware and try to keep my eyes open for some type of opportunity or whatever you want to call it. I had to just be prepared for the next door that opened and or open it myself. So as I went forward training athletes and they would tell me things they can't do or couldn't do, I would just stop them and say, you know what, that's good, but what can you do? Like, stop telling me what you can't do. Tell me what you can do. You can't ride your bike at 30 miles an hour for 10 minutes. Well, then what can you do? How far can you run it? Like focus on that. If it's 10 seconds, then that's your can. Let's do that. Um, and so you have to look at those things and just be, again, be honest with yourself. And I'll tell you, the most heartbreaking moment for me when I realized that something had to change was, and I really wanted to let stuff go, is I hid it from so many people. And, my parents, they were in a tight spot. And they asked me for money. or asked if I could help out with them with a little bit of money. And at that moment, I didn't have $20 to help them with. And that broke my heart. And that was when I finally just told my mom what was going on. And she was devastated, more that she was more worried about me and my well being. But it was one of those things that was just so hard to be honest about everything. And so, looking back, had I been honest earlier, that wouldn't have been that big of a deal. So, anyway, that's my story for this one, guys. Again, any questions, comments, please reach out to me. There's questions in the comments section below. Email me at tim@timtarpley.com. Find me on Facebook, Tim Tarpley. Have my Proven Strategies group. We'd love to have you. And that's it. Bye.